All right, y'all. So the question on everybody's lips seems to be: is Marlo Hampton being protected by production? Okay. That is the question. That is the topic of conversation today, especially in light of some news that we have got to talk about. Okay. So, first things first, shout out to everybody who watched the review. It was a slightly tipsy review, and somebody said I was drunk. Was not drunk, slightly tipsy, but we had a good old time with that. I also said in the review that I had not heard about this Anthony altercation with Drew, but a lot of you guys in the comment section had updated me that Anthony had apparently done an interview with House of Aaron. So please head over to the House of Aaron's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of that good stuff. Like, comment, support. I had not seen that. So I wanted to make you guys aware that this information existed because also I like to support my people and I want you guys to have all of the information, especially when I didn't realize that it was out there. Okay. All right, so let's get into what Kenya Moore had to say. And it's fitting because of some things that are happening in the news. So, you guys know that part two of Kenya Moore's interview with Carlos King will be happening tomorrow. It will be airing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, I'm going to be sitting there with my tea bag and my morning breakfast ripe and ready for this ponderosa. Okay. So in this, and I'm going to put the alleged bag up here, but I feel like, Kenya is speaking her truth. She says that she feels like, one, Carlos does ask her if she feels like Marlo is being protected. She says yes. She talked about how about 6 weeks into production, and Marlo is constantly arguing with Candy, and so then she says the managers, I'm assuming that she means the production, the people over production, felt like they needed to switch up the storyline, so then they bring in Scotch Bright, and I'm assuming she's talking about Scottley, who is Marlo's paramour, her beau on the show, as we continue to watch her story unfold. And, she says that was sort of meant to soften, Marlo up or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But she goes on to talk about how, for years, she was the villain of the show and she was never protected. And she said production never gave an F about whether or not she was protected or not, probably because it was making for great story and it was making for great ratings. But in this instance, she feels like Marlo is being protected because scenes of Marlo, things that she's doing, are being cut out. And for instance, she tells us that there was a scene of Marlo allegedly chasing Kenya around a restaurant that were cut out, and they're putting in elements of Marlo's life that make her appear a lot softer, like the foster care event, in lieu of some of Kenya Moore's scenes, which she has filmed, and people feel like Kenya Moore's, and we'll get into this a bit more in our next little section, but people feel like Kenya Moore's role on the show is being reduced, especially in favor of making Marlo appear a lot more softer. And I'm going to give you my thoughts about this after we kind of dive into everything that we need to talk about. But in this clip right here that we're going to see the full thing of tomorrow, she goes on to talk about how this is someone, and she's talking about Marlo, that season one came in the door, and basically lying about how she did not say the F word, and that is the gay slur or whatever. I guess when they were on the trip in South Africa. And she lied and said she didn't say it until somebody had to produce proof that she, in fact, did say this word, right? So Kenya is using that as an example to show that, Marlo is not really showing us her real life, her authentic life, whatever that may be. And Kenya feels as though she is the person who is facing the consequences of that because they're giving Marlo this edit in favor of showing Kenya and the things that she's got going on with her spa. And how do we know that this is happening? Well, let's get into the tea of it all. And I'm going to pull this up from This is going to be from TV Deets. It's just taking a bit to load because I'm still in my hotel. All right, so TV Deets have reported that fans, Real Housewives of Atlanta fans, slam Productions' decision to remove Kenya Moore spa scenes. Now, you guys know that Kenya Moore is opening up her own hair spa. And so we've seen some of that play out on the show. So Kenya says, and I'll make it a little bit bigger for you so you guys can see it. Kenya says, someone says, I'm ready to see the Kenya Moore hair spot next week. Kenya says, I think it was edited out. The Real Housewives, edited out of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, despite having the entire cast there except one, and Miss Cynthia Bailey and Claudia Jordan, and it being my main storyline. So we get that bit of information. Then she also goes on to point out, well, this is the Peach Report pointing out that the saddest part about season 15 to me is the missed opportunity it had to be amazing. While many blame the cast, most of it falls on the current showrunner and production team without a doubt, and you see it more and more each week. Production fell flat this year. And I have to say that this is a statement that I agree with wholeheartedly. I feel like, again, to me, I felt like I said it at the beginning of the season, and I will say it again. I don't think you can produce you can't produce Atlanta like you produce Potomac. The show has a completely different vibe, it has a different feel, it has a different energy, and it has been on a lot longer. These are different women, so you have to definitely film this a lot differently. I think that Potomac definitely thrives on a sense of scandal drama to be what makes the show like the heartbeat of the show, and that's not really the case with Atlanta, or not what we really are looking for from Atlanta. We're definitely looking for shade, fun, and all of that good stuff. But I just think that what I am seeing, or what it feels like to me, is, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with showing Marlo in all of her full colors, right? Because everybody has shades of light and shades of dark. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with showing a softer side of Marlo, because I think that that's balanced storytelling. But what I think also you cannot do is, I feel like if Marlo, it does sort of feel to me, and it has felt like this much of the season, that they are treating Marlo as kind of like the Giselle of the show. And for me, it always feels like when I'm watching Potomac, that Giselle will kind of clock in, do what needs to be done to make things go around. And Giselle is smoother with it. And I feel like they're using Marlo to do the same, and she's not as smooth with it. Marlo has always been a lightning rod on this show. And I think that that has been okay, because at that point she was a friend. But now, as a main housewife, I think you have to have a bit more finesse with how you manage that, especially when we have known you in one capacity and it's only been expanded on for much of it. It's an interesting dynamic. It's such an interesting dynamic, and it's so nuanced that it's really even hard to explain it. But I feel like core fans of the Real Housewives of Atlanta will understand what I'm saying when I say that you can't you can't do the same things as a friend as you would do as a housewife. It doesn't mesh, and we can tell when something doesn't feel right. And I think that this comment right here echoes what many of us have been feeling. To further that, another person says production failed Kenya this season. So many scenes were cut out, including the opening of her salon. The entire cast was there, minus one, plus Cynthia. What's wrong? And then this comes to us from OMFG Reality TV, who we love around here. It says, I think editing wasn't focusing much on storylines. Not gonna lie, Real Housewives of Atlanta season 15 was all over the place. And that is another thing. The common thread here for a lot of us would have been to focus a lot more on the Drew and Ralph of it all from the jump. And I think that had they done that, this could have been a better season. Look at how things unfolded with the Vanderpump Rules cast and the scandal that happened there, and how they took a little bit of a pivot in terms of the editing. I'm not sure who was behind that to make the Drew and Ralph of it all the focus, like right at the end. But I think we should have started with that and given a lot more breadcrumbs throughout the season. I think that that was also a big mistake, but we talked about that time and time again on this channel. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I'll be interested in hearing what you think. Note that this does in no way, shape, or form means that I'm not a Marlo fan, because I am. I just think that I don't think that Marlo was produced properly. That's what I'll say. All right, so let's now move on to Dr. Heavenly. I actually love the story because I do feel like it kind of hits home at something that I feel like a lot of us can relate to, which is paying for, like, who should pay for a birthday dinner, especially when one's man is there and is asking for everyone's cash app, because it does lead to a lot of questions, like, could they only take one credit card? And did he offer to pay because they could only take one card, and he expected maybe her friends were going to chip in, and he didn't want to pay for another, man and couples and that sort of thing? Or some people have the belief that, he was the man of the hour and he's on another show and the meal was $1,500. They would assume that maybe he had it. I think that there are a lot of assumptions that can kind of go into this, a lot of questions that I would need to be, asking to really get at what's the real thing here. But I think that Dr. Heavenly, of course, I love that because she's a relationship person, she loves talking about relationship stuff. I think she weighed in on this on her Instagram because it's a hot topic. And so she gives her take on it and talks about how, Dr. Damon would, essentially, take care of this for the group, or she rolls with a group of girlfriends who are kind of like always like, nah, girl, let me take care of this. Let me take care of this. And that's the type of crowd you want to be around, right? But since it wasn't just the girlfriends involved and it was some men involved as well, how does that now work, right? So she speaks on her thoughts about that, and if the man invited the people, but we don't know that I don't think this was planned by Martell, because Martell is actually going to clap back at Dr. Heavenly. Well, not really clap back, but he's kind of clarifying and calling out Sanya as well. So and then Dr. Heavenly also goes on to talk about how to make this meal potentially a tax deduction. Okay. And I will let you guys watch that video to give you guys the intel on that, because I'm not a financial expert. So I don't want to misguide you or tell you the wrong thing. However, what we can see and look at and dissect is Martell's response. He says, I didn't invite anyone. I wasn't the host. I was invited like everyone else. I brought a gift. Those were her friends, girls, and some had their husbands and boyfriends. Heavenly, you said your husband would have paid. When I was married, I paid for dinners, and when I host dinners now, I pay. If it's not, I can pay. If it's not, I can pay it. It's the principle. I paid for my dinner and Sheree's dinner. I said y'all can cash at me. I've come to realize that extending a good gesture doesn't mean ish, because the main person, aka Sanya Richards Ross, who spoke about this situation, I just paid for her and her husband's dinner when we casually met up a couple of weeks prior to. So, not doing things people expect of you or want you to do will bring out their true character. And then he writes the deuces peace sign. Okay. So, as Sanya, last week we saw her and Sheree going back and forth about this. And what Sanya's thoughts were. It appears as though Martell is letting us know, no, hold on, Sanya. I just took and paid for you and your man. So how you gonna be sitting here calling me out because I asked y'all to cash at me because we had a bigger party and I wasn't trying to pay for everybody? The fact of the matter is, listen, I don't know what's going on with this situation. It is already hard enough for me to believe that Martell and Sheree are dating. So that's why I really feel like I'll be giving this situation, like, I mean, like what? But let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Who is responsible? Who should be paying? Who should not be paying? I want to hear your thoughts. With that being said, I will catch you all in the next video.